Hey there, welcome to episode 100 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 10:45 a.m. on Friday, January 24, 2025. Today's topic, speed dating and team building. What do those two things have in common? Well, let's find out. The Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is named, if you're curious, for the Cafe Centro, which was the place where startups start in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually in the city of San Francisco, in South Park, very near the AT&T ballpark. I honestly don't even know if it's still named that. It was a tiny little coffee shop. The park was cool. It's a place where Jack Dorsey was working on his little project that would eventually become Twitter and then would later become X, the end of the universe. And so that's where startups started. Cafe Centro, 2 Fs, just like Cafe Genius. The Genius Lunch was a gathering of people that kind of hung around, either participating in or proximal to the downtown project here in the greater Vegas area, actually in downtown Vegas. And so part of the eventually formed greater Vegas Entrepreneurial Innovation Ecosystem. And then impresarios are people that are making it happen. Impresario spelled with 2 S's, 3 technically, but impresarios. Cafe Genius Impresarios, it's about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem here in Greater Vegas and maybe even beyond. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description. It contains the show notes and just the usual shameless self-promotion links today. We're kind of throwing an idea out there that has been done before. This is not new. Question is whether it would work here in Vegas for entrepreneurs and innovators pursuing a startup idea and getting the team together. So on that note, let's read the show notes. The summary is as follows: whether you are in the greater Vegas area, specifically within the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem somewhere, or if you are somewhere else, there's usually a challenge to overcome early on, maybe again soon after, in a startup timeline, and that is putting a team together, whether a team of 2 or 5 or 25. So how to indeed. Let me fix one. It was a capital letter. Had to capitalize one letter. So not bad to get started with. The links for today's episode, like I said, the shameless self-promotional links, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. No obligation to spend money. There's a profile page when you go to buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. On it, it's like a link tree, but on a free-form web page. So I can include links to my various audio programs, GitHub projects, favorite coffee beans, a couple other things, some background information. And I link at the very top of the profile page to the posts section, which you can also find at the bottom of the page. So either way, buymeacoffee.com supports the posting directly and hosting of audio. And there you will find, only on buymeacoffee.com, the Buy Me an Update micro episode published on Mondays. Covers what happened last week with the audio programs and whatever's going on for the coming week. I think episode 10 is coming up on this next Monday, so fairly new, maybe interesting. It's kind of an experiment. Ko-fi.com for text updates, and they do not support audio hosting the way Buy Me a Coffee does. So check those out. It's a way to engage content creators, open source project developers. And I've had both of these accounts for years. I can't say that I've been driving up the numbers like crazy, but hey, it's a way to find my other programs. So why not? More power to us, right? On that note, let's get started. So you want to start up. You have an idea. Maybe it's your idea. Maybe your friend or colleague has an idea. Either way, it's usually 1 or 2 people who come up with something. Not always. Could be 5, 10. Who knows, right? But probably it's 1 or 2 people that have come up with some idea. A light bulb shines brightly. Ding. Adrenaline flows. This is going to be big. And aspiration begins to lean toward nascent. That means it's coming. It's beyond the, hey, wouldn't it be cool stage. maybe this could be a thing. We should do it. Now we could be I, to be clear, it might be just you. It is probably two people with the seed of a notion, the wavelength synchronized, the sun sets, the sun rises, and we go through a few of these and alternate between doubt and excitement. Like, should we do it? I don't know. Yeah. Oh no, we totally should do it. Yeah, we should do it. So that's where it comes in handy to have two people so you can't talk yourself out. It's something like this. So your story may be similar or wildly different, but at some point we reach a particular point and I or we might need some help. If we are aiming for a stealth startup, we may be concerned about talking to people, about possibly exposing our idea. Though eventually we'll learn that the idea itself isn't necessarily the source of future success so much as the passion or special insight that you and your co-founder, maybe co-founders, bring to the idea. So merely having the idea and talking about it, that's not going to get it done most of the time. Now, not always. If your idea is actually easy to implement, that's a different challenge that you will face eventually. But go ahead and be careful in the early days. Who learns too much about the big idea? It'll make you more comfortable and confident. But you will be seeking talent. I have no idea what your startup is, and don't tell me. But generally speaking, there might be some need for a website, a logo, or some other artwork, maybe initial social media presence. Maybe you need programmers, or maybe someone to write your prompts for your AI coders. Coding is dead from what I hear. Or maybe you need cooks or bartenders. Basically, it's whatever who knows what your startup is. It could be anything. It could be a restaurant. It could be a retail shop. It could be the next whatever. Basically, the skills your founding team, that's you and your co-founder or the co-founders, of one, whatever your team of one or more, it lacks. You can, if you're not a web designer, and not to mention that there are only 24 hours in the day despite our best efforts. So you might just need to add a team member or two, some early, what is it? The founding team. And then there's what is it called? Well, I know there's a common way to say it. I was employee number 2, right? So there's the founding team, and then there's those like early employees, people that are first in. How to find these people though? Look on Fiverr or some other gig website, maybe for finite tasks like a logo or a quick one-pager. Maybe even a 5-page website or equivalent. There is always a trade-off between small gig work. These are tasks and a sense of vested interest. So if you want to do something with a long-lasting impact, or if it's more than a task where it actually does matter that you're kind of a part of it, literally, you'll want to decide whether you can bring on some employees or maybe some contractors with maybe a little possibility for the future. Maybe some potential for them coming on full time, or at least being a part of the adventure. I always say a startup adventure. Startup venture is fine, but adventure, more exciting. Some equity might be a consideration, which means you'll want to have an attorney in the mix for some consultations. At the very least, I'm not an attorney, and none of this constitutes legal advice, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Do you know a recruiter? Are you looking local or reaching out for remote participation? Neither is super easy. Looking local, you have the advantage of in-person conversation. You can get to know the people you might be bringing on to a team at some point, or at least participating in a stealth adventure early on. But you might also have to look beyond if local talent is not to be found. So let's start local. Startup weekends and hackathons. Have you ever been? If you have never attended or participated in a startup weekend, this might be 2 possibilities in one. On the one hand, you can present your idea or a subset of it and see who in attendance for the weekend might be interested in joining for the weekend, as in joining your team, your project. If you're not familiar with Startup Weekend, you go and you're either pitching, you're there to join a team, or maybe you're a spectator. It depends on who's running it and whether they want a bunch of spectators hanging around. But the setting is set, right? Like if you're like, we're going to go see a movie, then everybody in the movie theater understands that's the deal, right? We are here to look that way and don't talk. So at a startup weekend, we're here to hear about some startup ideas and then think about which one we would want to quote unquote join for the weekend. And it's not unheard of that a startup weekend team will continue beyond the weekend. Sometimes they don't, probably often they don't. It depends on many things, but the possibility is there. So you may meet some interesting people that want to be a part of your team for the weekend, and then we'll go from there. As well, the people who did not join your team for the weekend are still proximal. They're here. They're here for the same reason the other people are here. If they're not pitching, they're here to join a team, right? There may be some opportunities to have other discussions, meet some other people, get some referrals. It's the right setting for this sort of thing. Hackathons are another great place to meet people, especially if you're willing to think outside your project box. So you can go to a hackathon that isn't necessarily related to what you're trying to accomplish in any way. Hackathons bring people who are innovative and driven, people who want to take their weekend or their whatever period of time it is and go and hang out with other people and work on something. And everybody will automatically think, oh, laptops and Red Bull and pizza. It depends. A hackathon is more of a, just like a startup weekend. It's sort of a structure. There's a start time and an end time, and sometimes it's straight through. Sometimes you go home and come back. They can be remote, but in person is always more interesting, a little bit more sociable. Both of these, startup weekend and hackathon, have the ticking clock. So there's an end, and sometimes for hackathons there can be prizes or some sort of recognition for who did the best this or that. So it's a little bit different, but similar idea. You kind of gather to accomplish something in a mildly competitive, competitive is the right word, I suppose. You hope everyone does well, but you hope you do a little bit better, I guess. So it's friendly competition. They may be trying out some ideas with coding or AI hardware, or drones or whatever. It could be a cooking hackathon. I use cooking a lot because it's a fine context that people don't expect for innovation, even though tons of innovation happens in food and cooking. Hackathons bring people who are innovative and driven, though, and so they may not be working on the thing that they do day to day. They may be taking the weekend to try something else or taking whenever the hackathon's taking place. These are good qualities. If they, hey, it's the weekend, I'm going to go try to do something I've never done before. That's good. They may be trying out those ideas. They may be, maybe you are going to try out some ideas. You don't even have to work on anything related to your hackathon. Related to your startup at a hackathon. But you'll run into a variety of interesting people with other interests or skill sets. You can join in, like I said, and be a part of the challenges, which helps so you don't look like a spectator. And you should do this with your co-founder. It's a little bonus test for you and your existing team, if you have one. So you, co-founder, if you have one or two people that have joined, just see what you can accomplish together. It's like a team building exercise at that point, literally. It's an opportunity to take part in the team effort with a ticking clock, like I said, so you can find out how you do and who you run into without divulging your actual idea. So you're in almost like a startup weekend. You're in a context where everybody there kind of has the same thing in mind. Like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do it for the space of the hackathon, and it might have nothing to do with what I do day to day. And just trying something new, trying something challenging, a personal adventure, and then we'll see what happens. So you and your team will also learn about themselves. So generally good. I've been to many more hackathons myself than startup weekends, so I have a little bit more context to talk about hackathons. I think they're a good idea. They're good. They're an unexpected source of learning and potentially meeting interesting people. If you're in the Greater Vegas area, you know that these don't take place very often, neither startup weekends nor hackathons. We'll try to change the latter. We'll try to have more hackathons for 2025. It's always a challenge getting to people to participate, and it's mostly about getting the word out and having people understand what a hackathon really is. So we have our work cut out for us. If you're up for it, you can travel to other places. If there are events similar to these that welcome visitors, so there are hackathons in other places. And you can participate in person sometimes, so long as they welcome people from other places. Startup weekends may be a little bit trickier, but I think they let non-local people in. I don't think that's a problem. So try it out. Or you can join in a virtual event. Virtual is not quite the same, but it is still a way to engage with people who maybe they have interesting skills and they're driven, and maybe you can engage with a remote team member or two, or maybe your entire team will be remote, working from home. That can work. It's depends on the circumstance. Here in Vegas, that might be an interesting idea. Who doesn't want to come and visit Vegas, have team meetings on the Strip? Maybe, I don't know if that's a good idea, but that's up to you. So what is this speed dating? Why am I even suggesting speed dating and team building in the same breath? This is not really a new idea. You may find now, and you may find now and then, if I can read my own notes here, events to match co-founders, sort of like an abbreviated startup weekend pitch phase. So you get a room of people together. Maybe technical and non-technical is one way to split the personality types, the two sides of the startup coin. But it could be just, a collection of people who are interested in a startup. They have a startup idea, or they're interested in participating in a startup idea. And usually those two people should meet. Two people with startup ideas, they're too busy. They don't even bother talking. Two people without startup ideas, they're not busy enough. They also should not be talking. So you pit the startup founder with the potential co-founder and see what happens. Personally, I don't think this is the best way to identify a counterpart who might be instrumental through good and bad, bringing an idea to reality. Your mileage may vary. And of course, if I say it's, no, you're never going to meet, well, of course you're going to go out and meet your co-founder. So I'm not saying it doesn't work. I am saying that it may be better if you don't know how this will work, to start, especially if it's your first startup, to pursue an idea solo and see what happens, or try something with someone you already know. It helps to be, to know quite a bit about your co-founder. You should know them pretty well. If you've worked together in one way or another, if you've gone through long projects together, or if you went through, maybe you were both working for a different startup, or maybe you're working for a big company and you said, you know what, big company is no good. Let's spin ourselves out and do something. So that is often a good idea, but depends on you, depends on the one or two or however many other co-founders that end up sort of gelling, but either way, whatever happens between you and your co-founder or co-founders, this is the foundation to build upon, and so hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully doesn't have cracks in it already. So here in Vegas, there were some speed dating events back in the downtown project days, along the lines of entrepreneurial matchups. These may or may not have led anywhere. I don't know if anybody really kept track this many years later, but during our meetup collaboratory for the Cafe Genius group about 2 years ago, one Steven Simmons suggested a speed dating format for connecting founders with talent. So maybe services like legal or accounting, maybe talent like web development or social media management, maybe coders or chefs. These are all potential skilled contributors so whatever the skill sets you're looking for. And so the idea would be to draw people with those skill sets. And there are a couple of different formats we had thrown around. So maybe, one, hey, it's speed dating with founders and finance, or founders and accounting or business support services, legal, accounting, etc. Maybe it's founders and web developers, etc. So hopefully you'll get the right, just like having the founders and co-founders meeting up. You don't want to have people who are not interested in, I do something that you would have no use for, so we should not spend too much time chatting. On the other hand, that's how you just generally meet people, so that's not awful either. But yeah, the idea is to put people together in this context. Like I said, if you're in a startup weekend, if you're in a movie theater, you know why you're there. You're not there to just see what happens. You're there to, I would like to meet someone working on a startup so I can join a startup, or I can contract for them or offer my professional services. So kind of cut to the chase. So here we try to recreate the startup weekend pitch phase, right? In the startup weekend, your founder or founders will get up and say, here's what we're going to try to work on. Here's what we're going to try to accomplish. And then people will consider joining your startup. We could even start off with actual pitches similar to that, but really the usual way is a mingle format. So you kind of have your elevator pitch, hey, you're a web developer? Oh, here, we're working on this, 1 minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, but usually try to keep it under 2 minutes most of the time. And then you have a brief discussion. You kind of get a feel for like, oh yeah, we should talk later. And then the latter part of the gathering, so after everybody's had a chance to mingle a little bit and talk about what they're doing or what they want to do, the latter half, say, or some, there's time for some free conversation, and you might say, I really want to talk to you about your skill set and what we're looking for. Maybe we should meet up after this, or maybe we can talk for a few minutes and see if we should meet up after this, etc. So you kind of plant the seeds of in-person in a context. I use that word a lot, but you're all kind of on the same page about what you're trying to accomplish. So it isn't just throwing darts at a wall, right? This is not production by street. This is not as telling as an actual startup weekend where you actually are working together for the weekend. Literally the weekend. I think startup weekends typically do not go straight through. You're not staying awake for 2 days or 2.5 days, but you could. Depends on you, maybe. Hackathons, same deal. You may or may not be staying awake with these people. That's you find out a lot about potential colleagues at that point. But with the collaboration against the ticking clock, in both cases, you're going to learn. You're going to learn something about the people you're collaborating with. If the gathering for a speed dating session is assembled around the startup founders and whatever early team members already are on hand and people with skills in demand meeting each other, the odds of at least beginning a conversation might be pretty decent, and it would be worth checking out. So there are a couple of finer points. We're almost done, I promise. The finer points, it's like speed dating, but it takes 20 times longer. The finer points. In a talent matching speed dating gathering, so this is not founders and co-founders trying to meet, it's team. So I have a startup idea, we're pursuing it, we're thinking about it is a little bit trickier. We are up and running, but we're still in stealth mode. So we want to find, we're looking for particular skill sets to be a part of these early days, etc. So that's your personal context. So, okay, why would I want to go to this? There should be some expectations up front that the startup teams are in search of people to fill particular roles or tackle particular tasks. The goal would be to pack the room with those talents. So you kind of, like I said, you could go to a office or business services versus technical services, web developers or coders. You could have so that's for technical startups. Restaurants, bars, catering companies, entertainment companies. You're doing a startup, doing event planning, so you want to have people that have the relevant skills that you're looking for in your startup mode. So you try to kind of load the room rather than opening it to just anyone. In which case you'd probably spend some of your time saying, oh yeah, no, we don't need jugglers. Not yet. Would that be a hard filter, maybe? Or a velvet rope? Like, yeah, okay, you're kind of, you can get around the velvet rope if you're interesting, right? That might be worthy of some experimentation. So if we were to pursue this here in the greater Vegas area, it might be, it's going to be an experiment either way. For the paranoid, we would want to have some assurance, not a strong bulletproof NDA that may or may not work. Not about confidentiality, but about a certain ethos in the room. So it is a huge ask, believe it or not, to ask someone to sign an NDA or to enter into any sort of confidentiality agreement if you're not hiring them. And in fact, this is why most venture capitalists, most people on the money side, I'm not going to sign an NDA because after I talk to you, I might talk to somebody else doing the same thing. They will never agree to prevent that meeting Like, oh, you signed our NDA, you can't meet with that other person. Yeah, but their idea might be better than yours, and I'm going to make money. So you'll find that is kind of the nature of that side of the world. So if you were to go to a speed dating event and you're going to say, hey, you got to sign this NDA, nobody's going to want to talk to you. So the ethics in the room, though, the ethos would be, hey, you're here for some potential opportunities. If you steal ideas, or if you, generally behave in that direction, it's not going to work. You won't come out of that looking good, right? Oh, that person steals ideas. Never ever talk to them, and that will go. People will discover that. So the paranoid, it will. If you're super paranoid about talking about your idea, then conversations cannot take place. You're going to be holding back. You're going to not want to talk to anybody. Oh, I don't want to talk about my idea. There's too many people. They're going to hear it. But we can insist on the ethical baseline and go from there. We can say, hey, look, you're all here for the same thing. Generally, don't steal your ideas from each other. That's not going to work. That's not how the world should work. And it doesn't work that way here. Obviously, all sides of all conversations are not compelled to share anything. So we keep it professional but light. And then if you decide, I'm only going to talk about the upper layers of the idea, we're not going to go too deep, that's perfectly fine and probably actually a good idea. But as well, there's always the challenge, and it's hard to be comfortable with. Your idea, if it's really good, can't just be duplicated by hearing it. You're supposed to bring something extra. You and your co-founders maybe, should have that extra, the missing pieces that will take an idea and turn it into success. So merely hearing your idea doesn't automatically make it copyable unless your idea is not so defensible. Then, again, you'll learn that lesson soon enough. We have this great idea. Well, but it was so easy to copy that now you have 10 competitors on your first day. That could happen. Ideally, the room will be occupied. The room will be occupied by founding teams, talent looking for connection and potential gigs. So if they're, short-term, contract, etc., or invitations to join a startup adventure, and even and the event organizers, but they're looking for joining a startup adventure, or maybe even be joining as an early team, or maybe you do need a co-founder, or maybe you didn't know you needed a co-founder. So it could be any sort of you never know. But if the room is full of people in that mindset, like, I'm looking to be a part of something that's not totally done, right? Startups are always in maybe a pivot phase, or, climbing the hill, or so. Yeah, there's an opportunity. If you're in a room full of people that understand that the nature of things, I always tell people, if you go to work for a startup and your first day, if they happen to have an office, they don't have a chair for you, that can't be a deal breaker. You got to say, okay, well, that's cool. I'll sit on this couch and get a chair at some point. So you kind of got to roll with it. So if you're in a room full of people with that mindset, you're off to a good start. And then the event organizers. So those are the people in the room. They're not going to be a whole lot of spectators or people kicking tires or like, I'm thinking about having a startup. Those people should go to other events. So if you're not working on a startup and not looking for those connections, aspirational tire kickers can do something else. This event would not be for them. The downsides, if any, well, there might be no connections made. So you might go and you'll feel like, I wasted an hour, wasted 2 hours. Not really. You met people that are interesting. You might talk to them another time later down the road. There are a few guarantees in life, though. The goal would be to establish an environment and some potential matches, and then let the conversations fill in the blanks. So if not this time, next time, reach into the local talent pool. Again, you'll be meeting people that you might want to meet again later. Hopefully the talent pool is large and deep, and interesting startup ideas and founders may improve the chances, not the changes. One typo, not too bad. Chances might improve the chances. So if it's not necessarily a numbers game, but if you're able to have larger numbers, maybe this is Vegas, right? The chances, the odds, you can do the numbers. But sometimes I always tell people, what's the right number of people? If 2 people show up and it's the right 2 people, then you only needed 2 people. So it's it's a numbers game, or it's a question of, we'll use the word curating, but people are not, museum pieces. But if you can gather a good group of people, maybe it's the right size and doesn't need to be 10 times larger, and some good conversations and whatever else follows will. But it might take a few tries. So if I listed this as a downside, it's not necessarily a downside if you eventually find what you're looking for, right? It's worth spending a couple of hours of your time. And it's always good to either talk about your idea with people who you are not going to get too paranoid about, or to be on the other side of that conversation and learn about ideas and get used to talking about your skill set and how you would fit into a startup environment if you've never done that before. So ends up being an educational time, if not completely fruitful. There may still be some reticence about sharing, or maybe the risk of oversharing. You may want to hold back, talk about the 20% of your idea that you think would be enough to identify the challenge or the role that you're trying to fill or the tasks that you need to complete. Sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you don't need to go into great detail. You can do what's called compartmentalization. So you talk about hey, if you need a web developer, they don't need to know your algorithms. They need to know what story you're trying to tell, et cetera. So, and again, I'm leaning towards tech here, but even who wouldn't want to see a kitchen hackathon? They have them on TV all the time. Bobby Flay, Kitchens, Chopped, Iron Chef, etc. They're basically hackathons, right? So if you have any reticence about sharing, if I were to wager, I would say that first-time entrepreneurs will tend to be more concerned, a little bit more paranoid. Second-timers or anyone who's been around the track a couple times are more likely to feel better about the risk-reward ratio. Like if I don't talk to people, I will not accomplish my idea, so it won't matter if anyone steals it because I won't be doing it anyway. So you kind of have to find the balance that works for you when it comes to talking about it. It also generally helps to talk about your idea, because as you talk about it, you're improving the story you're telling, the way you're describing it, and so on. And when you're pitching for funding, that's going to come in handy as well. So finding that balance might require some iteration. We would want to be sensitive to this, though, and add and tune the feel of the event, the way it's described to people, the way it's couched as a, hey, when you come here, try to be professional. Don't don't steal other people's ideas. You can liken it to any sort of public performance. If you're a comedian, a stand-up comedian, and you go tell a new joke, other people are going to hear the joke, and somebody might steal it, and then people will know because they'll say, "Oh, I heard that joke told at an open mic, 3 weeks ago, and now I'm hearing it from somebody else. I wonder if they stole it." So, the normal person doesn't necessarily keep track of those things, but people in that realm. So if you're in a startup community, or if you're in the startup scene, wherever you are, maybe the second startup scene, somebody's going to say, "Oh, yeah, you were at that, and then now you're working on something similar to what the other," that will bubble to the surface and people will notice. So, you need to have that sense that's, if it does happen, it's not going to go unnoticed. But if you never tell that joke, it won't matter anyway. So sometimes you got to put yourself out there. That's not advice, though. That's just sort of a fact. But don't say, "But Dan said I should talk about it." That's up to you. The other side of the coin may be the members of the talent pool risking their own good ideas and insights. From their perspective, at least, I have a skill set, and if I tell somebody, maybe I'm going to end up saying, "Oh, you know what you could do?" And then you'll feel as though, and maybe you really will, give them the solution that they're looking for, and they'll say, "Oh, now we don't have to hire anyone." And to be quite honest, you don't want to work with those people, that type of person anyway. So it's unfortunate if it cost you a small opportunity, but it prevented you from worse. So maybe there's the feeling that their time is better spent searching online, though. The talent pool, maybe, I can just go online to a gig site, or I can post something on LinkedIn or Indeed, or who knows, right? Both sides of this equation, founders and talent, if I may, simply this notion thus, what have I written here? Simplify this notion thus, I think, would almost certainly benefit from knowing how the previous speed dating event turned out for those involved. So I'm not exactly sure what I was thinking when I wrote those words. But I think what I'm saying, if I may interpret myself, to simplify the confusion or the concern on both sides, if you go to a speed dating event you've never been and you say, well, did anyone go to the last one? And they'll say, oh yeah, I went and it went really well. I met a lot of interesting people and there's interesting ideas and there wasn't a match, but that's why I'm here this time. Or, hey, yeah, I did match up with somebody. I did some contract work for them. It went really well and they're still going. So they're, hopefully it'll launch or whatever the case may be. And so if you start hearing good things from last time, yesterday's weather, if you're familiar with that term, then, okay, so maybe this could work. So instilling confidence will come from serial success, or at least serial good experiences. Nothing like fear of missing out to draw interest to something novel and potentially lucrative. Those are especially lucrative. Oh, what? Tell me more. That might be interesting. I certainly wouldn't want to miss out. And these are things we want in our evolving entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. We definitely want more and more people who get it, who want to be part of the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem as entrepreneurs, as innovators, maybe both, and to be a part. I mean, not everybody can be a founder. I would often say this of the Downtown Project. If you fill a room with entrepreneurs, remember we were talking about, setting the context, the setting. If you fill a room with entrepreneurs and then you say, does anyone want to work for me? Everyone in the room says, no, I'm working on my own startup. So you have to strike a balance between who you're trying to talk to and create that setting that's conducive to having productive collisions, if you like. We can steal that idea from Downtown Project. So they won't be serendipitous though, because we're gonna set the stage. And again, to make the movie theater analogy, if you invite a bunch of people to a movie theater and they all wanted live music and you're like, no, we're seeing a movie, this is not going to work. So you set expectations, you create a scene, if you like, or a tone or a theme. And if people know what their role is for the gathering, I'm a founder, I have a startup, I'm looking for this, and somebody goes there and says, I have these skills and I'm hoping to run into some startup people that need them. And you hope that those overlap, Venn diagrams in action. So that's the idea. Finding team members is particularly tricky. There are people here in the Greater Vegas area who are in their early stages of startup, and when they can gather, one or two people to build their initial, in the early days, a startup of 4 people is not uncommon, and it's amazing what you can do when you add one person with the right skill set and frame of mind, mindset, if you like. Skill set, mindset, both. Sometimes that's the missing piece, and you find, the puzzle is complete. We can actually get this up and running and launch it or whatever it is. And it could be, again, opening a new restaurant, starting a food truck, opening a bookstore, opening something, whatever it is, a new school, writing a mobile app, building a web service, the back end side, launching a data center, creating a new technology. The list goes on and on and on. And sometimes you just need one or two new perspectives and new skill sets to join and see what happens. So making that happen makes for a more fertile, if you like, ecosystem. And it actually encourages the next ideas to come a little bit more quickly with a little bit more confidence. Like, okay, people can build teams here. So that's the idea. Let's see what happens. So we'll throw this into the Initiative 2025 pile and see what starts to grow. If you want to visualize that, I'll let you do that. Thanks for listening, of course. And don't forget to check out the Buy Me a Coffee and ko-fi.com ko-fi technically. Both ending in Dan Hugo, and see what other things I'm working on. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend if you're listening to this on the day I publish it or on any Friday, or have a great whenever you like, whenever you choose to listen. Take care.